Okay, so let's do part two, and it'll go by very fast. Part one was the meat of the emotion unit, and this is the part that should go pretty quickly. Okay, so when we talk about expressed emotion, we're going to talk about how we detect emotion and what we do that are things that are like nonverbal cues. Can you read people's emotions without them telling you, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, etc.? So obviously we have nonverbal cues. One of the things that Myers tries to do is they try to get you to pick out in these which one's the real smile versus which one is this author's fake smile that's used in all of the novels that he writes on the dust jacket. This is the real smile because you can see his eyes are activated versus this is a forced fake smile for a photographer. These are things that are nonverbal cues to help us pick up on emotion. So interestingly enough, women are better at reading emotions than men. And they think that's part of that is because women express more nonverbal emotion than men do. Okay, and this is supposed to be a genderless image, and women can read it better than men. That's why that's on there. But this is showing an experiment that was done where men and women were shown three different kinds of films, and they recorded how many times women exhibited facial features to go along with the emotion versus men. And obviously, you can see women in the pink way more than men. So women can read emotions better than men, or so our studies have shown. Okay. Universal versus cultural. There are 6 universal facial expressions that go with this, and the 6 universal facial expressions are ones that are understood no matter what culture you go to. Like a smile means the same in every single culture, whereas sometimes other things do not. Like hand gestures are definitely very different in culture to culture, but a smile is the same no matter what. A frown is the same no matter what. The look of disgust is the same no matter what. Okay, so facial expressions are universal. That's what you need to take away from that. Okay, so let's talk about the experience or the emotions that we experience. Fear always associate with the amygdala. Okay, anger. The thing we have to talk about with anger is the catharsis theory. When it comes to anger, is it better to lash out or is it better to keep it in? And from what we have seen, from what we've studied, expressing anger increases anger. So it's actually not good to have a angry cathartic response. Like it's not good to go kickboxing. It's not good to hit a wall. It's not good to punch a pillow. It's not good to scream into your pillow because it's not releasing the anger from your body. It's actually creating more anger. Okay, so that's the thing you have to know for anger. There are a couple things you have to know for happiness for that emotion, one of which is the feel good, do good phenomenon, which is very important. Feel good, do good phenomenon is that people are more likely to be helpful if they are in a good mood. So if something good has happened to me and I've just had like a great class and I leave my classroom and I'm walking down the hall and somebody trips in front of me and drops all of their books, because I'm in a good mood, I'm more likely to bend down and help them and pick their stuff up, as opposed to if I just had a terrible class and you guys just irritated me to high heaven and I'm just so angry at everything that's happening. I'm walking down the hall and I see a kid trip and drop all their stuff, then I'm probably going to just walk by them and act like I don't see them and not be helpful. Because when you feel good, you're more willing to do good. Okay. Well-being is your self-perceived happiness or satisfactory in life, which goes along with your happiness. The other things that were pointed out in this for happiness is when you wake up in the morning, you have like an increased mood. And then as the day goes on, your mood drops, which is why things always seem worse at night. I remember being a little girl, my mother always told me that things are always worse at night and don't make decisions at night, always make them in the morning. And that is honestly because your mood is worse at night. It is better in the morning. Okay. Things that have nothing to do with your happiness or money. And as you can see too, for people who like make more money, their happiness actually stays the same. Adaptation level phenomenon and relative deprivation are the other 2 big things that you have to know that go along with happiness. Adaptation level phenomenon is where you think you're going to be happy when you achieve a certain level of something, and then you achieve it, and then you realize, I'm not happy anymore, I want the next level. So the example that I always give of this is like if someone was homeless and they did not have anywhere to live, they would be so happy to get a small apartment that was theirs, where they lived, like it was their dwelling, their home, their place. Well, after a year of being in that small apartment, they're no longer going to be happy in that small apartment. They're going to want something that's a little bigger, maybe a bigger apartment, or maybe an actual, like a house with some property. And then if they get that, let's say they get a small house with a little bit of property, after a couple of years in there, they're no longer going to be happy in there. They're going to want something else, something bigger. That's adaptation level phenomenon, where you think you want something at a certain level and you achieve and you get that level. But once you're there, you want the next, and then you want the next, and then you want the next. Just think about that too with like your cell phones. You guys ache and ache and ache for a certain cell phone, but once you get that cell phone, after a couple months with it, you want the next one. You want the next model, the next level, whatever's better. And you consistently leaves you wanting more. Happiness and others' attainments goes with relative deprivation. The sense we are worse off than others with whom we compare ourselves. Relative deprivation is where you don't realize you are unhappy until you compare yourself with someone else. I love the quote that's in your book that said, I had no idea that we were poor until a rich family moved in beside us. So you had no idea, Alan, the mail's coming. You had no idea that you were not happy with your life until you compared it with someone else. And so same thing, like your parents give you a gift and you're really, really excited with the gift until you talk to your best friend and find out that they got something that was much better. And then now you're no longer excited with the gift that you received because you compared yourself with someone else and therefore felt deprived or less happy with it. Okay. All right. So the last thing that we have to talk about, the very end, I wrote this on here. Normally, this is something that we do over spring break, but because we didn't do spring break assignments, I didn't assign this. And it's a very, very easy chapter. It's stress and health. A lot of it you covered in 9th grade when you were in health class, but there's 3 things that you have to know that the College Board likes. Number 1 is Selye, that's how you pronounce that, Selye's General Adaptation Syndrome, otherwise known as GAS. And the 3 phases of Selye's General Adaptation Syndrome are alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. Okay, what this means is that when your body goes into stress, it enters 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, according to Selye. We've mentioned this before in class because this is one where I talked about if you stay in phase 2 too long, you'll die. So essentially what happens, a stressor occurs and your body enters an alarm phase. Okay, this is where your adrenaline will release. This is where your autonomic nervous system will kick in and your body is going to combat whatever it is that is causing the stress. Okay. Phase 2 is resistance. You are coping with the stress or fighting against the stress, whatever it may be. And phase 3 is where your body gives out and you enter the exhaustion phase because your autonomic nervous system and that adrenaline has kicked in for such an extended period of time. We always compare this to childbirth because it's the easiest way to do it. Phase number 1 would be going into labor. Phase number 2 would be laboring and actually pushing the child out of your body. Phase 3, if you have a parent that's had a baby recently or a sibling or someone who's given birth, what do women do after they give birth? Yes, they cuddle their babies, but then they fall asleep. There's severe exhaustion that comes with it. What Selye was pointing out, that if you stay in phase 2 for too long, you'll die because your body can't stay in phase 2 for an extremely extended amount of time. You have to recoup in phase 3. This is why a lot of women died in childbirth and still do in areas of the world because if the baby is not coming out and there's not a method to stop, like there's not a C-section, there's not something to get the woman out of labor, she will die of extreme exhaustion. And that's, obviously a serious problem, but that's why childbirth is the number 1 cause of death for women since the dawn of time. But you can, apply this to other things too, like people who die running marathons. Same thing. They start running, their body outpours all the hormones. It's not trained to do it. And so they don't exit phase 2 in time enough for their body to catch up with their response, and so they'll die from it. All right, so that's CELYA, general adaptation syndrome, the three phases of how your body deals with a stressful situation. Okay. Also, your book points out what's the difference between stress and like something that's not as stressful. Like a catastrophe is a huge, terrible event, like a fire, a bombing, your house burning down. It's a catastrophe. A hurricane, tornado, these are catastrophes. Significant life changes are things like your parents divorced, you move. They're significant life changes. It's not a catastrophe. A daily hassle is like you can't find your car keys. So obviously these three are going to produce different levels of stress in your body. You have to know the difference between type A and type B personality. If we were together, we'd take a little test. We can figure out who is who. If you are a type A personality, you're somebody who's like an extreme go-getter. You're someone who is very organized. You can't leave tasks undone. Like you go, go, go. You have to get it done. You stress. Okay. Type B are people who are just like, whatever. They'll get it done when they get it done. They don't stress about it. They're very, very laid back. Now, the majority of us are AB. We are a mix of the both, which is the most healthy. Shockingly, guess what? Type A are more prone to have a heart attack. They're more prone to have coronary heart disease. They're more prone to die early because they just can't relax. Type B live very long because they don't stress about anything. Maybe they don't accomplish as much in life, but they don't worry about stuff the way type A does. And then also stress and illness, the big thing to point out, your lymphocytes that are in your body that help fight disease, that's what's happening right here, something striking out and fighting that little germ. Lymphocytes are hurt by stress. So if you have AIDS or cancer, one of the big things is, obviously these are stressful diseases to have, and it's hard not to stress when you have a disease. But having extreme stress in your life progresses the illness. So the importance of not stressing when you have a disease is something that your book points out because it only makes it worse. Okay. All right, that's the end. Let me know if you got anything for your content notes that you can't fill out. Hopefully it helped you fill everything out, and I'll see you guys in the Zoom class. Miss you.